When you're reading a label, is there a place you should, right? I feel like it's natural to just read it like a book, right? You start at the top and go, but is there a place to start?
So I generally start at the protein and fiber.
Okay.
Because I try to say, like, those are going to be my deal breakers. Like protein and net carbs. Like, if I'm in that and it's not meeting my standard, then I don't need to. Yeah, like, I don't need to read all the rest of it. Save myself some time.
Okay.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries.
Hey, friends. How's it going? We are going to finish our conversation about reading labels. So Lauren and I are back again to...
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, we're going to put the bookend on this, so to speak. So for those of you who haven't heard part one or heard it and are like, okay, still too much information, we'll do a quick recap. So the pieces of a food label that we're going to look at, we're going to focus on knowing that what the serving size is, calories, although calories are really less important once we read the ingredients, right? A calorie is not a calorie. We want to make sure that the calories we're eating are giving us nutrition.
And I thought what you had said last time was so important, that one serving size doesn't necessarily equal two, right? So looking at the serving size, that was something so important that I didn't necessarily know. So if it's one serving size, right, just adding one and one is not necessarily two as far as the ingredients go.
Right. So what Lauren's saying is, if you're eating more than one serving of a food at a time, we can't necessarily just double the nutrition facts from the label.
Right.
Okay, so serving size, calories, total fat, right? We're looking for total fat of 5 grams or less, except for when it's the good nutritious fats.
Like nuts or something, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
When we look at carbohydrates, we're looking at total carbs, dietary fiber, sugar, and sugar alcohols, right? We're going to calculate our net carbs. Net carbs is your total carbohydrates minus dietary fiber minus sugar alcohols. Remember, when net carbs is telling you the amount of carbohydrates in the food that are going to impact your blood sugar. Fiber is good stuff, so we want that. So that actually helps lower the impact of the rest of the carbohydrates. So that's why we remove it.
Scrubbing bubbles.
Exactly. The scrubbing bubbles of our intestines. And sugar alcohols do not spike our blood sugar. So they're sweeteners that don't spike our blood sugar. So our net carbs.
And we want that, you said, in the single digits, right?
Exactly.
See, I'm actually remembering things now.
I'm impressed. So net carbs under 10. Fiber, we want at least 5 grams. And we want to choose foods that have 5 grams of sugar or less.
Okay.
Right? So 5 or less on the fat and sugar, 5 or more on the fiber, net carbs in the single digits. And then protein, we want to look for generally as much protein as possible, I like to think. And our guideline on protein is 7 grams is 1 ounce. So we can think of it like 7 grams is about 1 egg white. And then, of course, we're always going to look at the ingredients to identify, the sources of these things and potentially identify things that maybe it's saying 0 trans fats. But when we read the ingredients, we can see that there is something hydrogenated in it. And therefore, 0 is not really 0.
Right. That's why I think that was such an important point, to really follow up with reading the ingredients so that you really understand everything that's in what you're eating.
Yeah, and the bottom line of all of this is that it's just practice. We have to do this to remember it. We have to do this to get used to it. And so that's what today is all about. So we're going to go through a bunch of different foods, and in particular, some categories of things that I think are particularly challenging, either challenging to find the quality choices or challenging to understand what you're even reading.
Right.
So let's start with, the bars, the snacks.
Right.
So tell us what we've got.
So this bar was recommended by my stepmom, who I never even read anything. I just assume that it's awesome because she recommended it. It's the Oat Mega bar in the chocolate peanut flavor. So, of course, the one bar is one serving size, and there are 200 calories in one bar.
Okay.
A total of 7 grams of fat, 2.5 grams of saturated fat, 0 trans fat, 22 total carbs, 7 grams of dietary fiber, 5 grams of sugar, and 14 grams of protein.
Okay. So I generally like to start with the protein.
Okay.
Right? So 14 grams of protein, it's 2 ounces. So not terrible. Like I think of 2 ounces as about a snack size of protein. Our sugar was good at 5 grams. That's probably about the best we can get.
Right. You said 5 or less, right? It was good.
Less.
Okay.
And fiber was good because it was 7, right? We want at least 5. Mm-hmm. What was our net carb? So remember, net carb is total carbohydrates.
So 22.
Minus fiber.
Minus 7.
Minus sugar alcohols.
No sugar alcohols.
Okay. So 22 minus 7 is 15. Mm-hmm. So we want our net carbs to be single digits. So not great on the net carb front. But let's see what else we've got.
Right.
Right? So generally, and the fat on this was okay, wasn't it too?
I was 7. I was going to just follow up, which just means when you say the net carbs are not great, which just means that it could impact your blood sugar.
Well, it will impact your blood sugar.
Okay.
Everything we eat is going to impact our blood sugar, but it's going to have more of an impact on our blood sugar than we'd probably like.
Okay.
So if you ate this with something that was more protein, it would maybe blunt the impact of some of these carbohydrates.
Okay.
What that would be, guys, we think about this as a collective meal, or a snack as a whole. So not everything has to come from one source, but as far as assessing the bar by itself, this is kind of what we're looking at. So let's take a look at the ingredients and see maybe where those carbohydrates are coming from.
Okay. And you said ingredients are in weight, right?
Yeah.
Greatest to least. Okay. So we have grass-fed whey protein concentrate. Is it chicory? Chicory. Root fiber. Whey protein crisp, which is made up of a few things. Whey protein isolate, whey protein concentrate, rice flour, tapioca starch, and calcium carbonate. Peanuts, vegetable glycerin, gluten-free oats, tapioca syrup, sugar, natural flavors, sunflower oil, chocolate liquor, responsibly caught fish oil, which I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, but I guess maybe you can help me understand. Cocoa powder, cocoa butter, soy lecithin, almonds, sea salt, and monk fruit extract.
Okay, so a couple things in here just for general information. Monk fruit extract is a low glycemic natural sweetener, and it's also the last ingredient on here, so I like that. Soy lecithin, you mentioned, that's an emulsifier, so it makes sure that it doesn't separate.
Okay.
The responsibly caught fish oil that was there, I think, is trying to add some healthy fats.
Like an omega. Okay. Like when you were saying things, the omegas are added in all these things. Okay.
Right. And the other one that I wanted to point out was the whey protein isolate. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have challenges with dairy.
Oh, okay.
So you want to see if your issue with the dairy is the lactose, like the sugar in the dairy, or the whey protein. So if your challenge is with the lactose, whey protein isolate should be fine.
Okay.
So if you're not sure what you're sensitive to, the lactose or the whey protein, try it.
Right.
Try something that's whey protein isolate. And this one is grass-fed whey protein concentrate. So this one doesn't necessarily have the lactose removed from the whey protein.
Okay.
As their primary source of protein. So I don't hate it. I think it's great. Maybe add some extra protein to combat some of those extra carbs, but not bad.
I'm
all
glad
things
you don't
considered.
hate it, 'cause
And yeah.
it's my favorite bar. So
Okay, good. Let's do another one.
okay. So we also have a Quest bar in chocolate chip cookie dough flavor.
I know a lot of people who love this one.
Yeah.
Let's see what we've got.
Okay, so of course, one bar, right, is one serving size. So we have, actually, I should have asked you this before. So when you're reading a label, is there a place you should, right, I feel like it's natural to just read it like a book, right? You start at the top and go, but is there a place to start?
So I generally start at the protein and fiber.
Okay.
Because I try to say, like, those are going to be my deal breakers. Like
Okay.
protein and net carbs. Like if I'm in that and it's not meeting my standard,
Then
I don't
abandon
need
ship.
to. Yeah, like I don't
Okay.
need to read all the rest of it. Save myself some time.
Okay, so I'm gonna read this one backwards. Okay, so protein is 21 grams.
Okay.
Then we have
So 21 grams is 3 ounces.
right
I like this. That's good.
3 egg whites. Yep. Okay, total carbohydrates is 21 grams, and of course, under there we have dietary fiber is 14 grams, and then you have sugars less than 1 gram, and help me with this.
Erythritol. So
Okay.
that's a sugar alcohol. So they've actually
Okay.
named the sugar alcohol in their
Okay.
nutrition facts.
3 grams.
So what does that make our net carb? So net carb is total carb minus fiber minus sugar alcohol, so the erythritol.
Right. So 21 minus 14.
Gets us to 7.
Right. Minus.
Another 3 gets us to 4.
Okay.
So
Low.
low.
Which is good.
Yep. Good on the net carb.
Total fat is 8 grams. Saturated fat is 3 and 0 trans fat. Sodium is 200 grams and potassium is 120 milligrams.
so those
200 milligrams.
Yeah, so I'm not really concerned about those.
Okay.
Let's go read the ingredients now and see where we're at, because these facts look great.
Okay. So we have protein blend, which is made up of milk, protein isolate, whey protein isolate, soluble corn fiber, which is prebiotic fiber, almonds, water, unsweetened chocolate, erythritol, cocoa butter, natural flavors, and then it specifies contains less than 2% of the following: sea salt, sucralose, steviol glycosides.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those less than 2% things. So sucralose is like your Splenda as a sweetener. And the steviol glycosides, that's stevia.
Right.
So added sweeteners there too. And it says less than 2%. So here's the thing. All of this looks great. When I eat this bar, I think it tastes awful to me. Like, I know people love it, and you do you, right? Like, to me, it tastes like there are way more sweeteners and sugar alcohols than they're putting on there.
Well, we know, because we discussed this, that it can be 20%, up to 20%, right? So 19.999% off, right? So that...
Without consequence,
Correct.
let alone the fact that this isn't even regulated because it's so costly to do that.
Right.
So who knows what it really is?
Right.
If you like it, knock your socks off.
Right.
Would I eat a bunch of them in a day? Probably not. I mean, that kind of goes for all bars and snack foods
Yeah.
and things like that, guys. Like, let it serve a purpose in the bigger plan of your nutrition. If it is the mainstay of your nutrient supply.
Carry it with you to the perimeter of the supermarket.
Right.
And shop there.
Well said.
Right. But
You know-
but you're saying that by breaking it down, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, like of all the bars out there, by the label, it's great.
Okay.
What else we got?
We have another bar,
Okay.
which is the Blueberry Crisp Cliff Bar. So again, a serving size is 1 bar, which I think for most bars, I would hope it is. Okay, so if we start, as you told us was best, we start with protein, which is 9 grams. And-
So, give or take an egg white.
Right. Like an egg white and a third.
Right.
Then 44 grams of total carbohydrates,
Yikes.
which is high, right? dietary fiber, 4 grams, insoluble fiber, 3 grams, total sugars, 22 grams, and then other carbohydrates, 18. So I guess to clarify, when it says total carbohydrates and then you sort of have the subcategories there, all of those things make up the 44. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then total fat, 5 grams. Saturated fat is half of a gram.
Okay, so hold on. Before we drive ourselves nuts, protein was give or take egg white. Our net carb is 44 minus 4 for the dietary fiber. Mm-hmm. So we have 40 net carbs.
Right, which is very high.
Very high. Guys.
Essentially 4 times what's ideal, right? Because you're saying you want it in a single digit.
So for all intents and purposes, this is a glorified candy bar that has the front of... I don't have a Snickers here, but I would
that's a
actually
good question.
be curious what the nutrition facts are of a Snickers bar, and I bet they're not that far off from this.
So with this one, put it down and walk to the perimeter of the supermarket.
Exactly.
Okay.
So not my favorite.
Right.
I think, go grab a bag of almonds instead of your Cliff Bar.
Right.
Oh, and the other thing about bars, guys, is you have to look at each flavor made by a brand. So, like, the different flavors have different formulations. So, one of my favorite bars, and if anybody out there works for this company, contact me. Let's talk. Like, I eat these all the time. It used to be called Think Thin. Now it's just called Think.
Okay.
And I like the creamy peanut butter. Not all of them are low glycemic, but the creamy peanut butter is. The thing about that one, though, is that it doesn't really have fiber, so it's only protein. So when I think about my meal or my snack that's using this bar, I add to it an apple or add to it something that's going to give me some fiber to help me stay full longer.
Okay.
But at least I'm getting, even if that's the only thing I eat is a snack, it's a couple ounces of protein. It's going to hold me over till I can eat a proper meal. So if anybody out there works for the Think Food Company, like, find me, contact me. I'm all ears. Like, let's talk. All right, so let's switch categories. Tell me what we've got next.
We have Pirate's Booty.
Oh, so now it's sort of like that snack thing when, like, you want the crunchy.
Right.
Yeah, all right, so Pirate's Booty, what do we got?
But also, just a note, I feel like this is one of those things, right? You can find it in Whole Foods. You can find it in almost any health food store, I think. So it sort of has that, like, healthy connotation. So I think this is one of those things, like you were saying, right? It's important to just sort of know what you're looking for and look at it and then make the decision from there.
Exactly.
So for this, first of all, a serving size is 1 ounce, right? And these are like little airy puffs. So 1 ounce is...
Generally, even the snack size bag you would pick up is more than 1 serving.
Right.
Although hopefully they've adjusted the nutrition facts on that label to make the whole bag 1 serving.
Right.
But
that would be interesting to know.
I have no idea.
In this one, so 1 ounce is 1 serving. Servings per container is 16.
Yikes. Don't eat this whole container.
Right. Right.
I have no idea how big it is, but don't eat it.
So protein is 2 grams. Total carbohydrates is 18 grams. And there's 1 gram of dietary fiber and 1 gram total sugars.
Okay, so even before we go any further, it's not really giving us protein. It's not really giving us fiber. So at that point, the question is...
What is it giving you?
What is it giving us? So, like, we talked about this in the other episode when we're looking at a label and kind of thinking about, not just what are we not eating, but what are we eating? And remembering protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal.
Right.
What nutrient are we getting from this food, or are we giving ourselves just empty stuff that I sort of, a doctor I work with calls it food-like substances, right? Where, like, we think we're eating food, but it's a food-like substance.
Right.
So just out of curiosity, let's go through the ingredients on this.
Okay. It's not a terribly long ingredient list, which is something, you've said, but that doesn't mean the short list is a good list.
Right.
Okay, so we have cornmeal, rice flour, sunflower oil, and or expeller pressed canola oil, cheddar cheese made up of cultured milk, salt, and enzymes, whey, buttermilk, salt, natural flavors, sea salt, lactic acid, citric acid, and organic black pepper.
So this is actually interesting. I didn't realize there was buttermilk in it. And you know how they advertise this as made with real cheese? So we're human. I've eaten this before, even though it provides zero nutrition.
Yep.
Because, listen, salad is a side of fries, people.
Right.
Okay, so sometimes Pirate's Booty is my side of fries.
Right, sometimes you need a carby crunch.
Or the equivalent.
Yeah.
And it upsets my stomach. And I thought, oh, maybe it is really made with real cheese. But I bet you it's the buttermilk.
Yeah, it's
Now that I'm
buttermilk
looking
is
at
very
this.
heavy, right?
Yeah. So, all in, it's just not giving us anything. Right? It's one of those food-like substances. And here's the thing about eating too much of this. If you're eating too much of these things at the expense of food that does have nutrition, right? So if we're filling our day with these kinds of things and we're never really hungry, we're never eating clean, lean protein, we're never eating vegetables or fruit, your body will always be hungry. So notice when you eat these things, if shortly thereafter you're hungry again. Right. And what that is that you're eating these things, your body, like the systems in your body are expecting nutrition. They're expecting vitamins and minerals and nutrients and things that it can do something with.
And you're giving them food-like substances.
And you're giving them food-like substances. So it doesn't have any of that in it. So it says, no, like I needed stuff. So I'm going to tell you I'm still hungry because I need stuff. Right. So if that's a challenge for you guys, like if you feel like you eat and then you can't stop eating, or you eat and an hour later you're still hungry, or you're hungry again, let's take a look at kind of what is making up that meal.
Right. Or have...
And there's a few things that could be going on, but a great place to start is looking at foods like this.
Right. Or, you know, like what you had said, have one serving of Pirate's Booty, and if you're hungry 30 minutes later, have an apple, right? And see if you feel differently than if you had had another serving of Pirate's Booty, which would have only been 1 ounce. But
for sure,
not the point.
Right. So another category that I think is really difficult is plant-based proteins. So like the veggie burgers, the things, you know, a lot of times, especially when I see people counting calories, they look to choose these foods because they tend to be lower in calories. And again, remember guys, our focus, we're encouraging everybody to choose foods on nutrition.
Right.
So a couple of the big names in the plant-based protein world right now are the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Meats brand. So let's take a look at those for a second. So Beyond Meat, this is the Beyond Burger. So it's a plant-based patty. So it has 20 grams of protein.
Okay.
Fine. So almost 3 ounces. Decent serving, relatively, right? 2 grams of fiber, which I'm not mad about, right? Like if I'm going to make up a meal, I don't need to be getting the fiber from my protein, right? So kind of thinking of this in terms of the meal as a whole, like what portion of your meal is this giving you? Is it the protein? Is it the fiber? The fiber in my meal would be the vegetables and the other things I'm eating. So I'm not mad that my burger isn't giving me the fiber, right? 250 calories, 18 grams of fat. That's a lot of fat, especially from something that's not made from an animal where the fat would be naturally occurring.
Correct.
So what that's saying to us is in the ingredients, I bet we're going to read a lot of fats. So let's take a look. Okay. Ingredient number 1 is water. Ingredient number 2 is pea protein isolate. Then expeller pressed canola oil, fat. Refined coconut oil, fat. Rice protein, natural flavors. Cocoa butter, fat. Mung bean protein. Methyl cellulose. Potato starch, apple extract. Salt, potassium chloride, vinegar, lemon juice concentrate, sunflower lecithin, pomegranate fruit powder, and beet juice extract for color.
So
At least they're using beet juice for the color instead of red dye number 7.
but no vegetables.
No vegetables.
Okay.
It's made out of pea protein and a little bit of, what was the other one? Like there was some rice protein in there too.
I don't eat a lot of alternative protein, but maybe this is the wrong kind of assumption. But I guess when I see like plant-based things, I sort of assume there are some more plants instead of like plant products.
Yeah, I mean, plant-based protein just means that it's not animal protein.
Yep.
So pea protein, rice protein, those tend to be, and sometimes soy protein tend to be your sources in alternative meats, for lack of a better term. My thing about this, more than, the source of the protein, is all the fat that's in this. Like, none of these fats are the sources of fat that I would want to be choosing and creating my meal. But healthy fats are great, but this burger is a lot of fat for something that is pea protein and rice protein.
But that's what's creating the flavor, correct?
Sure.
Because in animal, if you were eating a beef patty, a beef burger, the fat is naturally occurring in that, and oftentimes that's what gives it flavor.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's hop over to the Impossible Burger. So the nutrition facts of the Impossible Burger, it's 19 grams of protein, not bad. 3 grams of dietary fiber. Again, I'm not mad about it because this is going to be my protein in my meal. 9 grams of total carbs. So like we said, our net carb is single digit, which I would absolutely want from the protein of my meal. 14 grams of fat. I don't know. So let's see what the ingredients are on here. So ingredients: water, soy protein concentrate, coconut oil, sunflower oil, natural flavors, and then 2% or less of potato protein, methyl cellulose, yeast extract, cultured dextrose, food starch modified, soy legothemoglobin, I don't even know if I said that right, salt, soy protein isolate, mixed tocopherols for vitamin E, zinc gluconate, thiamine hydrochloride is vitamin B1, sodium ascorbate, vitamin C, niacin, pyridoxine hydrochloride, vitamin B6, riboflavin, vitamin B12, and then, I don't know. All things in here.
I don't get an awesome vibe from that ingredients list, but
right. I mean, this sort of comes from other information that I have heard. Number one, it is fully known that the soy that they use in the Impossible Burger is genetically modified.
Oh, that was a question I had. When you read, I think it was food
starch modified.
Right. So, I mean, it says modified. Does that point to GMO? Okay.
Guys, GMO stands for genetically modified organism. Food starch modified lends itself to the same category, although I really don't know for a fact. I also read something that the ingredient I couldn't pronounce, where did it go? The soy legomoglobin is something that they actually created in a lab. It is genetically modified soy.
I mean, it's sort of like hemoglobin, right? With another.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
So do what you will. You have to make the best choices for you and what makes sense for you and your life. I'm going to personally choose not to eat it. The other thing that I heard, again, I don't know this is fact, but this is what I heard, that the Impossible company created this formula and they were having issues with production. So they actually outsourced their production to Burger King, which is how Burger King is offering the Impossible Whopper, made out of the Impossible meat, Impossible Burger.
Right. I guess the question begs is what's better or what's worse, an Impossible Whopper or a regular Whopper?
Right. Again, guys, you got to make the choices that make you happy, that work for you and your life. And here's the other thing, and I say this over and over. Actually, we're going to do really quick, like a condiment.
Yes.
But in that category too, like the choices that you're willing to make today are different than the choices you might be willing to make in a month, 6 months, a year, or 5 years. So make the choices that make sense for you right now, and don't beat yourself up about it. Like if the option is, you know, the oat mega bar, or
They're delicious.
yeah, you know, like the oat mega bar, or, you know, a pizza from Pizza Hut, or a pizza from anywhere. I mean, I would choose the oat mega bar.
Right.
But you got to do what makes sense for you. And, you know, no one begrudges you that. Like, I think the whole purpose of this podcast is to put the information out there, the truth, the facts, like get to the bottom of everything that we hear. And from a place of knowledge, you can then make your choices.
I also think, you know, this is something people have been saying for so long, right? Everything in moderation. If you have one Impossible Burger because you want to just try it and see what the plant-based burger that Burger King is selling, you know, tastes like, great, try it. You know, if you're having one for every meal, you know, 7 days a week, maybe just do a little bit more research on what the ingredients are, you know, and consider what that impact might be.
And questions about GMO or GMO soy or whatever, I'm going to refer you back to our other episode about the state of our food, where we kind of dig deeper into that. Let's do one more label. I think we have a ketchup, right?
Right, with Heinz ketchup. Just your traditional, been around for as long as we can all remember. So the first thing that struck me is that a serving size is 1 tablespoon. That's like 2 fries, right? It's hardly anything. You think about even what you would need to cover a burger. It's, I think, significantly more than a tablespoon. I do love ketchup, however. So we start with protein, which is 0 grams. Total carbs is 5 grams, and there's 0 fiber, 4 grams of sugar. 0 grams of fat, 0 grams of saturated and trans fat, 0 cholesterol, and 160 milligrams of sodium. So basically, it's sodium and sugar.
Right. With a little tomato, maybe.
Correct.
In there somewhere, yeah.
Correct. And then the ingredients are tomato concentrate, distilled vinegar, high fructose corn syrup, salt, spice, onion powder, and natural flavoring.
Yeah, so we have a couple different sources of sugar in there. I think a big piece of this is the serving size factor, because most of us using ketchup are having more than a single tablespoon. And I mean, this is a big one though, of pick your battles. Like if you need the ketchup to eat the broccoli, eat the broccoli with a little bit of ketchup and move on with your life. You know, like I said before, the choices you're willing to make today are different than the choices you might be willing to make in a year. So I grew up putting ketchup on everything. I love ketchup.
Me too.
I still love ketchup. But I also, when I went to the grocery store years ago, I converted to a ketchup that was made with agave instead of high fructose corn syrup. And that was a swap or a switch that was important to me to make at that time, right? Like if I as I was in the process of cleaning up my food and I wanted to cut out the high fructose corn syrup, that was a trade-off. And I learned, you know, I grew to like the taste of this other ketchup. Was it different the first time? Yeah, but I didn't hate it. And, you know, it was okay over time. But
I did something similar and hated it.
Right.
So but again, you've said, you know, choose your battles. I think that's true. I did try because I was also trying to, you know, clean up certain things that I felt were unnecessary. I'm like, do I need this ketchup? If I can choose a better ketchup, the answer to me is yes now. I do need this ketchup. But can I choose other things that are healthier? Yes. And it's, you know, really just finding the right balance for you based on the knowledge that is accessible.
Yeah, and if you're in a place where you think, you know, you can't quite figure out why you're having challenges, maybe it is some of the sugar and artificial things that are in some of these condiments or smaller portion things, or what we think of should be smaller portion thing. You know, like maybe that is crazy.
Right.
In proportion to some of the other things. And so maybe that's something you want to look at. But I wouldn't say that necessarily everyone on the planet needs to convert. It's what works for you. So I think that kind of goes for all of this.
Right.
You know, like we've practiced reading labels. We've also talked about how labels can be up to 20% off without consequence.
Right.
If that's even enforced, which means our food labels can be
right.
all
And
over the
also,
board.
I think just generally, I don't want to say intentionally, but they can be a little deceptive, right? With the serving size, because if you're glancing at them very quickly,
and the high protein label on the front of some of these
Correct.
bars, and you're like,
right,
not so much.
And
once you know what you're looking at,
it's a sales pitch, right? Everything's marketing. So if you're glancing at it quickly and it's like says all these great things on the front, you're picking it up because you're in a rush and you don't feel like applying, an entire course worth of education to reading the label because you just want to eat something that you think is relatively healthy in the moment. So it's a difficult situation to navigate all the time.
Exactly. And so, knowledge is power. Mm-hmm. Although I'll take that one step further and say, knowledge in action is power. So we have to use this. So spend a little time next time you go to buy a snack or a bar or something. And, if you're not willing, then we went through a bunch of options today.
Right.
Use those. And if you have questions when you're reading labels, DM me on Instagram. I'm at Jen Trepeck, JenNTrepeck. You can submit it on our website. The picture of the label on our website. It is saladwithasideoffriespodcast.com. And, we'll analyze it and post it. And I just have one request, though, guys. When you submit your food label, tell me what your thoughts are. Do a little bit of your own assessment, and then I'll add mine, and then we'll post it. Cool?
Awesome.
I hope this was helpful to get into action and practice this a few times. Any questions, I'm always here. Thanks again, guys. Go out and, choose a good bar.
Right. Thank you.
Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.